Good morning and welcome to our March professional learning session, ADVi, Texas's favorite college advising chatbot. For those of you that have just joined us, hello and welcome. ADVi uses text messages to provide student-friendly, accurate, and engaging information about key college access milestones, common questions, and action steps. Our chatbot is backed by a team of advisors who provide personalized support to our students, so they get the best of both worlds, virtual and a real-life human. During this session, you will learn how ADVi can enhance your advising practices through scheduled text campaigns, as well as reminders. Quick introduction of our team. My name is Andrea Panter. I am the Senior Network Coordinator at Texas OnCourse and have the privilege of collaborating with my teammates, Lauren Disher, and she is our Professional Learning Coordinator, and Jared Garza, our Network Marketing Coordinator, and our Director, Laura Coogan. And we are excited this morning to welcome our guest speakers, Sam and Ellen. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Please take just a brief moment to introduce yourselves.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Sam Kimmel. I work with Andrea and the rest of the professional learning and engagement team here at the coordinating board. My role here at THECB is Quality and Alignment Coordinator, which may sound misleading, but I do oversee a small team of project coordinators and virtual advisors who support the day-to-day operations of the ADVi program. And excited to be here with everyone today. And Ellen, I'll turn it to you.
Thanks, Sam. Excited to be here as well. My name is Ellen Samofsky, and I'm a partnership director at Mainstay. We're the partner that supports THECB with the ADVi chatbot, and excited to tell you more about that today.
Thank you both. So our agenda this morning already included our welcome. Again, we are happy to have you all joining us this morning. I'll share a brief overview of our professional learning series and the different learning sessions we have on the horizon. And then Sam and Ellen will then share with you detailed information about our favorite chatbot, ADVi. And we have some time set aside for a Q&A session at the end. But just as a reminder, we really would appreciate if you just put your questions in the Q&A box throughout the session. It'll just be super helpful for us to be able to answer those throughout the session as well as during our Q&A session. So our mission at Texas OnCourse is to provide advising professionals with the resources and community they need to deliver exceptional college and career advising to every student. So all of the materials that we produce and at all of the trainings that Texas OnCourse hosts, we always begin with this end in mind, that the work we are doing is to help our students have a valuable plan after high school. And as many of you already know, this year, in addition to our monthly webinars, we have also been incorporating our monthly coffee chats, where we continue to our discussion of our monthly topic in the form of breakout rooms. This allows you the opportunity to collaborate with your other counselors, advisors, educators, and administrators across Texas, asking questions, sharing resources, and hopefully receiving some great tips and tricks from our colleagues. So our next monthly coffee chat is actually next week, where we will continue this conversation on March 26th, and that's also at 10 a.m. So mark your calendars for that. And you can also scan that QR code now, but we'll also be sending this slide deck to you later. So if you don't have an opportunity to scan it now, that's okay. And continuing on with, for those of us that are planners, we have the rest of this year's webinars and coffee chats scheduled out for you. Coming up in April, we'll be exploring the Texas OnCourse College and Career Readiness curriculum, which is free for all of you. And it was designed to ensure students are equipped with the necessary knowledge, skills, tools, and resources to successfully plan for the present and the future. So in this session, we will highlight enhancements we've made for our lesson plans and corresponding student modules. So that's coming up in April. So mark your calendars for that as well. And same thing, after that session, we'll also be having the follow-up with the coffee chat for you to be able to share different resources and continue that discussion. And we also have our spring outreach. We had our first session last month and covered TASPA and PASPA updates. This month, we'll be giving you guys an overview of Texas OnCourse. So if you're new to Texas OnCourse, maybe haven't explored the Academy, maybe haven't had the chance to utilize some of our resources, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to come and just have a general overview. So maybe you know somebody on your campus that you'd like to share, the knowledge that you've already explored with Texas OnCourse. This is a great session for that. And it'll be this Thursday, the 21st at 10 a.m. So, and then we'll continue to have one session every month throughout the spring. And our last one will be in May. So we will also be sending the schedule out to you guys in our follow-up email. We also have a very special webinar planned for March 27th. I know there's a lot going on in March. We are going to be covering the Texas First program. So if you've got any questions about Texas First program, we are going to be having a 90-minute session and then have 30 minutes afterwards for Q&A. So please join us for that. And again, we'll have information for registration for that included in our follow-up. So as we're jumping into ADVi today, we want to know how much experience do you have with ADVi? So I'm going to drop a quick poll. And 1 second. Here we go. If you consider yourself a beginner, average, or experienced, and I'm going to put this over here so everybody can see it. It looks like we are, wow, okay, 100% beginner, Sam. So that, and Ellen, that gives you guys a little bit of knowledge on where to kick it off and what to spend more time on. Thank you guys for completing that. And I'm going to kick it to you, Sam.
All righty, thank you, Andrea. And yes, see that we have a lot of unfamiliar faces here. So really excited to tell you more about our program and what it offers. If you want to go to the next slide, Andrea. During registration for the event, we did collect questions from y'all to find out what you wanted to know about this program. And one of the most frequently asked questions was simply, what is ADVi? And so we will kick it off there just to kind of set the tone and give you guys at least a little bit of context on what exactly this chatbot is, or service is rather. Because ultimately, ADVi is an AI-powered chatbot that was developed in coordination with Mainstay, but by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to reach Texas students with critical college planning information. We aren't simply, though, a Remind 101 tech system. There is an element of human touch with the bot, and so we really try to blend artificial intelligence with human support. And that's where we have a team of advisors who step in to support the chatbot when students need it, and we'll touch more on that later. But ultimately, our goal here and the mission with ADVi is to simplify the college going process and really support advising capacity across the state. We know how limited capacity is, as I'm sure everybody on this call is already aware. And so, our mission is to make sure that students can get timely information delivered right to their phones, meet them where they're at, and also, answer those frequently asked questions that can free up time and resources on campuses across the state to provide personalized support to students. And do want to also give a little bit of context for how ADVi got started, just given kind of the climate we're in. I know there's a little bit of skepticism at times around artificial intelligence. Again, it might seem like, why have this program if there's other folks using something like, again, Remind 101 or some sort of automated text service? But I think it's important to ground us in, 2016 was around the time that we at the coordinating board began experimenting with the concept of intrusive advising in higher education. And there was also support for text-based advising research specifically conducted by the Nudge for Solutions Lab at the University of Virginia. And so even though there wasn't a ton of large-scale empirical evidence for the success or efficacy of this type of advising service, there was really clear promise in its ultimate success, and specifically the use of AI to support student success. And so that led us in 2018 to partner with ADVi Texas at the University of Texas at Austin to actually start experimenting with AI intervention. And ultimately, you know, as an agency, we were trying to find out, is texting more effective and, importantly, more cost effective at engaging and supporting students to both enroll and re-enroll in higher education than other existing interventions. And so we, you know, really started small in our efforts to kind of experiment with this. And in May 2019, launched a small pilot of campaigns to a group of adult learners with some college credit, but no credential earned in the South region of Texas. And those results were pretty promising. And so, Andrea, if you would move to that next slide there, if you can. So our early evaluation results, again, we started with this small cohort. It was around 4,500 students who were ultimately contacted by the chatbot. And of those, we found that 13% of students were actively engaged with the chatbot, meaning they had sent at least one message while opted into service, and 70% were passively engaged. And if you're wondering about the math there, the others ultimately opted out of service. But we found through this results, and this was conducted in the spring of 2020, that actively engaged ADVi students were ultimately more likely to apply and re-enroll in higher education than students not contacted by ADVi. And as seen here, 21% of our actively engaged ADVi users had applied and were currently re-enrolled at the time of the study, versus only 8% of those students who weren't contacted by ADVi. Likewise, we saw that 39% of our actively engaged users had taken some action, meaning they had either reapplied, re-enrolled, and or completed a credential, versus only 16% of those students who had not been contacted by ADVi. So this definitely, again, felt promising and worth our while to go ahead and continue exploring this concept and really look to scaling the program to see how we could, you know, impact more students across the state, given that this was, of course, a small pilot program. And naturally, like most of us out there, we were forced to pivot our operations thanks to COVID-19, both a blessing and a curse in a sense. But in 2020, the ADVi program was moved from the University of Texas at Austin to the coordinating board, and we received additional funding through gear funds and other partnerships, and we're able to actually hire on a team of advisors to support the chatbot. That was definitely one goal in terms of scaling this project. But again, we really saw ADVi as an opportunity to provide a safe and cost-effective way for the state of Texas to deliver that critical college planning information to students. And we really wanted to mitigate the educational attainment loss that had come out of COVID-19. And so later that year, at the tail end of 2020, we actually launched efforts to reach high school seniors, pivoting a little from that initial focus on the adult population. And we also kind of expanded our integration with how students opt in and our connection ultimately to Apply Texas. We knew that this was an application that around 350 to 400,000 students were using annually. And it just really felt like a super easy way to increase our reach across the state. At the same time, we also really deepened our relationship with Mainstay and began turning more to them for guidance and control over the strategic communications for our high school seniors and other audiences, just to make sure, you know, the service we were providing was going to be as fruitful, evidence-based, and successful for our students. And we can take a look quickly at, our impact to date, a few highlights. So since that initial cohort launched, we have actually served over 1 million students through ADVi. That's a mixture of those adult learners, high school seniors, some high school juniors, and a few others, but that's pretty much it. And of those students, we've had over 420,000 of them be actively engaged, meaning they've messaged the bot at least once. Those actively engaged students have submitted over 2.7 million messages or interactions with the chatbot. And of those, over 89,000 have actually been escalated to our advising team. Should mention we only have 6 advisors, so shout out to them. And those 6 advisors have since then engaged in over 41,000 advising conversations with students. So we definitely met that goal to scale and expand the program, and we're super excited with where we've gotten so far. You want to turn to the next one? Okay, and so another question that came in from the audience, and I think is appropriate to turn to, is, how exactly does ADVi help students? I'll go to the next one. So we'll be diving into that next, because it's really, I think, important to understand sort of the ins and outs of the service model to see fully what the benefit is. And so quickly, before I turn it over to Ellen here, ADVi is a text-based service, of course, but it's much more comprehensive than others that you may see as mentioned. And so this model is a hybrid of AI-backed advising technology and human support from that dedicated team of virtual advisors. But before talking about that component, I do want to turn it over to Ellen from Mainstay to give us a little look at ADVi behind the scenes and the research and insights that are really informing the work we do.
Awesome, thanks, Sam. Yeah, so to jump in, as Sam mentioned, the foundation of ADVi is really in getting the messaging right to students, and that's a partnership between THECB and Mainstay. And I'd like to jump into a little bit about what's behind all that. So if we can, actually, you can go forward 2 slides. And so first, to ground you, so Mainstay is, of course, we're a software company. That's one thing we do, and we create this platform that allows folks like THECB to send out texts en masse to students. So I want to just kind of state that. But on top of that, as Sam mentioned, is we have a service arm of our company that is really is in the providing the content ultimately that is the foundation of what goes out from ADVi. And this is all backed by research. And in fact, being backed by research is truly a pillar of the work we do as Mainstay. And it started back around the same time that THECB was doing their testing in this work. We were getting our start. And if you look at the research back then, it was really what we call randomized controlled trials, which are really the best type of research you can do to make sure that something works or doesn't work. And what we did through a series of those trials is really determine that indeed, when you text students and remind them to do certain things, they actually do it more often than if you don't text them. So that was, if you really boil down it all, there's a lot more to that research if you ever want to read it, but that's ultimately what came out of it. So around 2019, we then said to ourselves, it's not enough to just text students or to nudge them or to just remind them and do that effectively. We really have to begin to think about how we say it, and how we are going about, this is around the time, soon after COVID-19 hit. And there's a lot of issues that students are facing, stress, et cetera. And we knew that we wanted to get better at this type of work. So we partnered with outside organizations to be sure that we were capturing the type of information and basis for what we need to be sure that the messaging was helping students to prosper and thrive, not just be successful in completing a task. On top of all the research, you get to what this slide here is. Now we have this foundation of the messages that go out to students. Now the idea is, how can we make them more effective by actually personalizing them? So targeted and relevant is important to students as well. So we use the platform and the information that we may have to be able to say, should a student get this text or not, or should they get this version of the text or this version of the text? So a simple example of this is, if we know from the Apply Texas system that they've indeed completed their application, then that type of student might get a text that actually has them moving on to the next stage in the college going process, versus a student who has not yet completed their application. We can send more messages that not only give them the why and the importance of completing that application, but then helping them through and understanding the steps they need to take in order to complete it. So if you bring those, so now we have, so ADVi has research that's funding, the foundation of the general messages that we create. We now are able to personalize them. And then, of course, with the expertise of THECB, we're able to really understand how we can make this all perfect for the students in Texas. And that's an important aspect as well. It's not just about general go to college. It's about going to college as a citizen of the state of Texas, and what your opportunities are, what resources are available to you, and how you can best go about that process. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So we've touched upon those, the foundations of texting, but let's look a little bit more about what we've learned about what makes texting effective. We've talked about the personalized content, and I think this next part about adding meaningful support, Sam touched upon it earlier, but the real true foundation of good support to students is not only this type of work, meaning the texting allows us to achieve that information equity, but now we have to make sure that the students actually have humans that are with them to help them through those kind of unique situations, final steps, emotional support that humans at times are really the only ones who can give. So having that meaningful support, which is not only the advisors at THECB, but now by making you all aware of this work and understanding what messages are going out, that's another way we can combine this work together with the humans that are supporting these students. In a little bit, we'll go through like the whole student approach. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we look at the practical applications of this. But I wanted to touch upon the final point about the utilizing trust and connection. So as we know with adolescents, there's a lot of things going on in their lives, and trust and connection is indeed an important aspect of it, not only from their friends and peers that are around them who are influencing them, but we know that they have a very innate ability to create what we call parasocial relationships. You think of, singers in rock bands that they're into, YouTubers and influencers who are telling them every day what they could or should be doing with their time and money. But what we want to do is we actually want to exactly take advantage of that and their susceptibility to this, but actually use it hopefully for good. And the good of ADVi is really getting these messages right, as we talked about, to be sure that as they see ADVi, we talked about what is ADVi, and we can debate. I might make the panelists smile. There's also a connection of who is ADVi, and that is something we're trying to accomplish with these messages, that the students feel like ADVi is a buddy and a trusted source of information. So, and that's part of also in building the messages. And when you do that, you get these types of reactions from the students, so that they are actually, if you really truly look at, I won't read through all of these, but if you look at what they're saying, their phrases like you were like a friend to me, and the fact that they're touching upon even the fact, so kudos to Dr. Yeager, who helps with some of our research. He's from UT Austin. The growth mindset, a student picked up on that. These are amazing. These are the types of things we're trying to achieve with this messages, and making sure that they know it's a bot, they know it's not human, but yet they feel a connection to it and feel that it's a source of trusted information. So we love to see these types of messages. So now let's turn more to like, what does this actually mean, ADVi day to day, and how ADVi does the what and how of the research that we do together. So first, kind of backing up, just simply, how does ADVi truly work? As I mentioned, we're a big it's a platform. If you put 250,000 students into it, we can press a button and they get 250,000 students at once get a text message. So that's the true kind of foundation of the technology. But let's now look a little bit deeper into that. And I'll touch just for a second on the AI component of it, because there's different types of AI. I think ChatGPT has more recently made generative AI, or the idea of text being created on the fly based on a request from someone, being a real popular topic. And you know, very for the right reasons. There's a lot of good applications of that. ADVi is not actually that, just so you know. It's everything that ADVi says has been carefully curated by folks at THECB as well as Mainstay. So we know exactly what the student is going to get for an answer. What we use the AI for is actually to match. So the way that a student can ask, how do I fill out the FAFSA? They could ask it in 150 different ways. They can use slang, they can use misspellings, you know, they can use all sorts of differences in how they ask that question. The AI is actually being used to match it to the right answer. So we're getting the gist of what they want to know and putting them to the right answer. So I just wanted to clarify that aspect of the AI, just to be sure people understand that this is not, this, all answers are carefully curated before they get to the students. But the other part of ADVi, and I'm sorry, I actually digressed. If you don't mind going back, just to quickly. So there's kind of three main things we do from a proactive point of view. And the proactive point of view is really the part that actually moves the needle with students. So one, we simply can remind them, what we call them smart nudges. And again, these are things that can be personalized. If they filled out the application, they can get a nudge to move to the next step. If they've not, the nudge will say, hey, it's a great time, you know, it's time to fill out the application, and this is why, and again, put the whole student approach. The other thing we do is we can, again, answer their questions. So they ask a question, we answer it, and that's where I mentioned the AI coming in. And the final thing that we do is we can ask them questions. We can ask them questions en masse. So if we want to understand kind of just how they're feeling about the college going process, we can ask that question, and then we can use that information to maybe tailor further sends to them to say, okay, people who are feeling uncertain about it could get a certain send. People who are like flying down the path feeling great, they can get another send. So we can actually use this information to tailor what goes to them next. Thanks for going back, Andrea. Appreciate it. Nick. So now to really kind of hone in on how does this messaging then, how do we apply the research we talked about, the personalization, and make sure that it's really being done in such a way that we call this whole student approach. And as we do the research about what's effective, the other thing we look at is to make sure, again, that we're not just nudging them. If all you do is remind, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this, anybody will turn off, not just teenagers, but anybody. So we kind of go the full circle, and all the things you see here will offer socio-emotional support in certain messages. A big thing we do is around literacy. So either, you know, understanding campus literacy or financial aid literacy. And that could be just a message that says, hey, here's, you know, here's 4 terms that you might hear as you think about going to college, things like bursar and registrar. You know, for students who've never heard these words and might feel like they have imposter syndrome when they say to themselves, I've never heard those words, maybe I'm not ready for college. We want to make sure those types of students don't rule themselves out. So we offer the definitions in a safe space. Choose what word you want to know, and we'll tell you what it means in a really simple and easy way. And you can circle back and do all 4 options if you want. So those are the types of things. And the other thing was we try to bring them back to their why all the time. Like, why would you go to college? And why would you spend all this time filling out these financial aid forms? There's got to be a reason you do it. And let's make sure we keep your eye on the prize in that way as well. Next slide, next slide, please. So all of this now comes into really this, you know, this is a monthly calendar that, again, the folks at THECB are really intentional about how they think about what students in the state of Texas should be getting. And we, you know, every month we kind of think through the messages they should get. We design them, and then of course we deploy them. This calendar this year is a little shorter. We got a little bit of a late start for various reasons, including all the confusion around FAFSA. So we started in December. We normally start a little earlier in the fall. But in general, this is what we're planning, have done and are planning for the 23-24 academic year. And so as we send these messages out, what we get, again, we certainly love the feelings that students get as a trusted advisor, but the fact of the matter, again, we want to come back to the whole information equity. What we want to make sure is that everybody's getting the same reminders, the same support, the same encouragement, and then from there that they find their right path, and where they need to, they connect with the humans that can best support them as well. So we love to see this, that because our main goal is to make sure that they know what they're supposed to be doing, and that they feel empowered to do it. So in seeing these messages back from them to say, to have them appreciate this, even if they never respond, Sam touched upon active engagement. We also talk about passive engagement. As long as they're in the bot and getting the messages, then we know that we're doing offering them a service that will allow them to stay on track. One final thing I want to mention just from this offering as a part of ADVi is something that we call the scholarship bot. And what this is we have working together in a partnership with a few funders, as well as the National Scholarship Providers Association. We have made access to about 40,000 scholarships to colleges and vocational schools available to students through ADVi. Essentially, they enter what we call one of these hashtag commands, so hashtag scholarship bot, and we essentially offer them a link that gives them access to a form that lets them fill out a bit of information about themselves, and then they get returned a whole list of links of scholarships that they would be eligible for, and then they're welcome to apply to the scholarship. So that's something new that in the last year or so that's been added to ADVi. So for those of you who have been familiar with ADVi before today, which sounds like it's not too many of you, that's a new offering that's now available to students as well. And I think that's it for me, Sam, unless there's anything you want to add, but back to you.
Yeah, no, Ellen, I was just going to actually add a few other points to the scholarship bot. Thank you so much for that overview. So insightful as always, but we are very excited to offer this scholarship service and very excited for Mainstay to work on their end to procure it and offer it. And so we'll just give another kind of highlight and a couple of notes for everybody on the call, especially if this is something you want to encourage your students to use. A few of the benefits that I've really seen from this are namely, this is free. We know a lot of free scholarship services out there exist. This one has an added benefit of not, students don't have to, I guess free in the sense that you actually are selling your data, and this is not going to be that type of service. So that is a huge benefit for me, or in my perspective. Another is just kind of highlighting the fact that these results, again, as Ellen mentioned, get returned. Like a student, once they've completed the questionnaire, will receive a link to their results in their text message history. And we know students can struggle to keep track of items. And so just having it available somewhere where they're constantly interacting or utilizing, I think is another benefit there. And one last plug is that if you are working with students on this, I will say the questions are short. There aren't many of them to get through, but it really is in the student's best interest to complete it as thoroughly as possible. When I have been testing this out, you will get not just national scholarship opportunities, but it will start highlighting extremely localized ones, or really target those very specific programs or organizations that students have been involved with. So it's in their best interest to spend a little bit extra time just adding in those details or personal information about themselves to yield the most, robust list of appropriate opportunities for them. So that will be just kind of my last spiel before I turn it over or take a look at the lastly, just kind of turning back to our advising team. We received again a few other questions from registrants about, who are these advisors? Are they employed by the state? And so, yes, the ADVi advisors are coordinating board staff. They work in the same division as the rest of us here at Texas OnCourse. And we've really designed, or as kind of Ellen mentioned, the texting services has been designed to easily connect students to those advisors. They can simply text a hashtag command and have any question forwarded to our team so that they can answer tough for specific advising scenarios. They can, do some research to provide institution-specific responses or just provide additional, clarification and resources when students need it. Students don't even have to proactively text our advisors. We're actually notified. Our team is notified whenever the chatbot starts having trouble understanding students. So we're ready to jump in and to prevent any kind of miscommunication or dissatisfaction with students and the service they're receiving. And I also just kind of want to highlight that our advisors are virtual. And so they actually live across the state, though we're a bit concentrated regionally at the moment. But we really wanted to make sure we are bringing in advisors with a variety of backgrounds and kind of perspectives on advising issues. And so our team also comes from various backgrounds. We have folks who, have spent over 12 years working in the higher education sector around admissions, financial aid or enrollment. And then we have folks who, worked with programs like Advise Texas, College Forward, targeting 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So vast experiences we're bringing to the table to make sure that students get the support that they need. And ultimately, we'll just, our advising team kind of serves a second purpose of just really feeding us feedback from students constantly that we will use to drive program enhancements, both to ADVi as well as to the other tools run through or managed through the coordinating board. And yes. And so turning back, another question, how can students opt in? I'd say this is maybe one of the most frequently asked questions currently, and it's important to say currently. High school seniors, those are going to be the only K-12 audience that we're serving at this time, but they can actually just opt in through their Apply Texas account. And we'll take a quick look at this here. So in the current Apply Texas, because for those of you who don't know, and we'll take a look in just a second, we are going to be releasing a new Apply Texas run through the coordinating board later this summer. But for now, students just need to create a profile in the system. And then in the last page of the profile, the college history page, there's going to be a question asking if they consent to receive messages from Apply Texas and its partners. Clicking yes will get them opted in as long as they go ahead and start an application to a 2-year or 4-year college. Everything else happens on the back end, so that's all students really need to do to get in. Though I will say, we do have to use parameters or criteria like, does the student have the right birthday to receive these messages? Do they have the right high school graduation date to receive these messages? So it is really critical that students are entering in the right information in their profile to receive our service. So just a caveat in case you've heard from someone that they're not getting messages when they should be. We will continue to make this opt-in channel available with the new Apply Texas, and hopefully it will be even easier. Students will be able to sign up once again when just creating their account. They can go back and update their notification preferences at any time. And there also will be a feature that kind of nudges them in their dashboard to enroll if they haven't already. So we're really trying to push students to the service. So, again, we can reduce the advising capacity load for those of you on the ground. And the other most frequently asked question that I know has come through a few times, and so I will make sure to mark this as answered in the Q&A, but are there any resources for counselors? Yes, we've already created, we have a number of resources available through our website, which is just www.askadvi.org. And if you want to go to that next slide, Andrea, there is a dedicated page just for counselors. And it includes a couple of the resources we're going to drop links to in the chat here soon, but we have a welcome letter to just sort of get folks acquainted with the service and just better understand what it's going to offer to students. And yes, and then the ways to share ADVi is just a quick handout that ultimately includes a lot of language that can be copied and pasted into different formats that you're already using to communicate with students, whether that's, you know, a morning announcement message or your own campus-based text service, a school website, email newsletter, etc. So we have put that together to make your life easier in explaining it to students, because we recognize that it is not super easy to explain to them right now how exactly to opt in. So we feel your pain and are hoping to make it easier in the future with the new Apply Texas and just continue to support y'all in developing new resources or tools or getting you the information you need to, you know, spread any kind of awareness on the campus. And actually, Andre, if you want to go to the next one, we can see quickly those two resources there. Super simple, straightforward. And I'm happy to actually, I'm realizing we don't have the chat, so these will be emailed to you later, unless I do have a way to share them in the Q&A, which I would be happy to do. But that is what we have. And again, our website also does have other information directly for students. It has a frequently asked questions page, and you can always go there to find contact information should you need it to get in touch with our program staff. And that really concludes our overview of ADVi today. But I know there were a couple of questions, and again, I answered, I think, one.
Sam, can you see the Q&A, the questions,
Yes.
or would it be helpful for us to? I was going in and answering a couple as well.
Thank you.
And I think the first one you may have covered, but this is one we get all the time, which is, can advisors or staff sign up to use the service and get a better idea of how it works and show it to students, or at least see what students are receiving?
Yes, and thank you, Laura. Great question. So currently, we do not have a way for advisors or staff to sign up, unless, of course, you are, you know, building an Apply Texas profile and fill in the required fields to get messaging. But we do have an option, are very open to, you know, giving either campus staff an overview, providing a quick PowerPoint presentation that could support you in demoing the service to students. And so again, we have our contact information available on our website, and would be really happy to coordinate anything should there be interest in it. But unfortunately, we don't have a way to just opt in directly into the messaging at this time.
And Sam, as you're going through answering these questions, I'm just going to go to the next slide. We really do appreciate everyone's feedback that has joined us today. So if you guys don't mind just taking a moment to fill out that survey and let us know what other questions you may have, or how else we can better assist you with working with ADVi.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, we mysteriously lost our chat feature when we started this webinar. And I'm just gonna reiterate that we will send all of the links. There's a few things in the questions that folks have asked for, like the ADVi app or ways to share, and we will send all of that material in an email to everyone that registered, even if your colleagues were not able to attend live.
Yes, and I'm juggling back, sorry, between these questions. Okay, so I see a couple, I saw one, April asked, you know, if students aren't fitting the parameter of our typical students, not graduating at the expected age, can they still receive service or enroll in a different way? Currently, the Apply Texas method is our only enrollment method. However, we have, you know, worked to, I guess, extend or expand our criteria to account for the majority of outliers who maybe don't fit the typical high school parameter or high school senior parameter. So we are taking that into account, and there's a little bit of wiggle room there, meaning, at times a student might not actually be that high school senior, but we want to account for those who may be graduating late or graduating early. And yes, so hopefully that answered that question.
That's great, Sam. And did you see Miriam's question on, is it useful for current college freshmen? That's a good question.
Yes. And so right now we actually do have a very small scale service where we work with, we've been partnering with the Rural Student Success Initiative through Texas A&M's AgriLife Extension for the past couple of years. That's through a contract. And in that service, we have been supporting some recently graduated seniors through their first year in college. And we really are hoping to expand that type of messaging in the future and be able to one day provide our high school seniors with a service that follows them into college, just to make sure that they're fully transitioning and matriculating successfully, and that they persist through that first year, which we know is so critical ultimately to the full persistence and completion of a credential. And so that is definitely in the works and a plan for the future. And I would argue it is very useful for college freshmen. And I mean, we get a little bit of insight into that every year because we typically message our high school seniors until around September. So most of them who have gone on to college, or at least a 4-year, are already in that space, and we will get messages speaking to that, like, thank you, encouraged me to go talk to my professor in class. So we've been able to loosely test the efficacy through that.
We
And
also have
also
one
been
from
looking, about the gap year. I'll also just quickly touch on that. I also think that it would be very helpful for gap year. We address that very concern in our messages, and we have specific campaign language and materials around that we tend to address every year, just to make sure that students are aware of the implications of that kind of pathway, and just have all the information they need to make a decision that's best for them. But Andrea, so sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just continuing with some of the questions, but we also have one from Blair. By opting in on Apply Texas, are they just opting in for ADVi, or are they opting into other promo messaging as well?
They are just opting into ADVi, at least at the moment. That is the only service that is going to be provided. And I will say, because I know it mentions the language specifically says it's partners, that's really specific to our chatbot vendor, and not referring to third-party entities. We are never selling student data, and it is held to extremely strict privacy and confidentiality requirements, and all further guidelines, all of that good stuff.
We just have one last one from April. The service you are mentioning might be helpful for SPED students, our special education kiddos that attend college, and for Indicator 14.
And I definitely agree with that. And I will just quickly mention, because I agree, and as some of you may be aware, we definitely have an interest as an agency at supporting that population, as evidenced through Tomorrow Ready Texas, which was meant to specifically target parents of that student demographic. But we actually get a number of students and parents of students through their students Apply Texas accounts, presumably asking for direction and advice. And I would say that's actually a kind of frequently asked or addressed topic for advisors, just making sure that they really can navigate through those very complex steps towards getting the accommodations they need, determining what type of programming or college environment is best for them or for their student, etc. So wholeheartedly agree with that.
Awesome, Sam. Thank you so much. That's all we have for the Q&A. So thank you guys so much for attending our March Professional Learning series, and we look forward to continuing this conversation in our coffee chat next week.
Thanks, everyone.